まだつかねえのかよ。その金の受け取り場所ってのは。
そう焦るなよ。もうすぐだ。
Floki is gonna be there. The troll's son. Oh man, this is it, Thorfin. This is the beginning of the saga, the journey. Oh, look at this. Wow, look at this. Most impressive. Oh. Beautiful new sights, huh, Thorfin? And now, yeah, the reality kicked in again. Ah. Bit of pillaging. That's the nature. That's the nature, right? Wow. Wow, I mean, this studio is... Oh no, yeah, I was gonna say a bit of raping and pillaging, right? That's the nature. Wow. Here's his first chance at it. Let's see how he handles it. Oh. This is the group I'm gonna follow, eh? Oh, did he find him? Head honcho? There he is. Okay then. He's gonna know, right? Huh. His eyes are gonna be open. Yeah. Ah, he's up thinking, huh? Noisy little fly. And there he is again, is he? He didn't want to do it that way. Let's see. First test, Thorfin. Of course, he's not going to be able to do anything, but Ashkala gets to see his spirit, right? His fighting spirit. And his heart. Yeah, I was going to say he's letting the sword control him. Though, of course, he's quite young. He's like 6. Every single episode has such stunning frames, and just as I speak, look at that one. Legendary, iconic, but... He's not gonna accept it. Careful, careful. Can't just be putting anything in your mouth now. He's a bit desperate though, right? Sometimes your stomach does the talking. Oh.
立派な最後じゃった。トールズは
わしらの身代わりに。すまん、ヘルガ、ユルバ。
死んじゃったもんはしょうがないって。メソメソしてもお腹が減るだけよ。さーて、働かないとね。
Everyone handles it differently, right?
大丈夫ユルバ。まあ男手がないと忙しくてね。ユルバ
She'll break down. She is the Troll of Yom's daughter after all, but yeah, I think sooner or later she is going to break down, right? She's trying to distract herself, right?
もういいのよ。私疲れてないから。
Now it's gonna hit. Oh, beautiful music, man. Oh. Come on, man.
Yo.
Oh. Bjarn. Look at this. Mushrooms. See, yeah. Look at that. God.
血は争えねえか。
Hey, look at that. Oh.
獲物に振り回されてるようじゃ世話ねえな。
It's too big for him. There you go. Nicely done, Thorfin. Wow. First blood. That shot, though. Blood on his hands. Sign of things to come, perhaps? Ha! Goosebumps right now, man. It's those moments of the beginning of a journey, right? Ah. Oh, look at this. I think he noticed the demeanor, didn't he? All of them noticed. Ashkelad's more about Artorias. Ah, here it is. Slowly they're beginning to like him. His attitude. Oh, look at that. Ashkelad. Maybe he's noticed some improvements. Oh. Ah, yes. He's been practicing, right? So you see in that time span, he changed his attitude a bit. He was going to blindside him. 戦い。
しつこいガキだな。
お前を殺すまでだ。絶対に殺す。
戦場で手柄を立ててみな。
Hmm.
ノルドの戦士なんだろ。そしたらご褒美に決闘してやるよ。
Ah, there it is.
約束だな。
そうそう、戦士の約束ってやつだ。
手柄なんかすぐだ。
There it is. So now
すぐにお前を殺してやる。
Okay. Okay, folks, episode 5. Look at that. 5 episodes in to a new anime. So, I'm liking the progress here. Things are moving along. But yeah, I thought that was a great episode to follow up to the last episode, right? An important episode, a massive episode, and the implications of that episode are going to be felt throughout this series. But, I thought this was a great follow-up episode. And yeah, that certainly set up a lot of things for the rest of the story, and this kind of really highlighted it, didn't it? By the end of this episode, now it's confirmed, it's a given that yes, this is going to be Thorfin's journey or his character arc, right? Now that much was clear, I think, that he is going to be traveling with this group or becoming part of this group. I mean, essentially by the end of this episode, you do find out that yes, indeed, he is going to be a part of this crew. Again, it's a special case, a unique situation, right? But he is going to be part of this crew now, reluctantly, right? I mean, he's part of the group. He's part of the group for a different reason than the rest of the members are, right? But yet he is going to be part of the group. He is going to assist them, right? He is going to help them. He is going to be traveling with them. He's going to, he's going to understand some of these people or come to, learn from them. You see in this episode that he did learn, or, there are other characters that are presented as figures that can teach him quite a bit, right? I'm speaking of Bjorn, right? Of course, there's the others. The other prominent members being, or not prominent, or the standouts at least, the two brothers, right? I've seen them a few times now, and they stand out quite a bit. Other than that, it's just, Bjorn and Ashkelad. And you see the same Bjorn before he took the Berserker mushroom, right? That's just, you can't really consider that his actual character, right? That's just a hulking figure that's out of control. But, you see this glimpse of Bjorn in episode 2 or episode 3, right? As him and Ashkelad are, thinking about the job they just got, right? And talking it out. He's actually quite level-headed. Bjorn, even likable, right? You see that in the forest, he does kind of, he might have been out doing his own thing, collecting those mushrooms, but you see that he did take an interest, right? He was kind of checking in on Thorfin. Again, he happened to be there, but he spotted him, and again, he seems to have an interest. But you see that he does show an interest in how things have progressed, how things are coming along, how he's getting used to the sword. And you see that he's, it might be indirect, but he is showing Thorfin the mushrooms that are safe to pick, right? Or the ones he should be, trying to pick. So, I thought that was a great touch there. Indirectly kind of helping him out, throwing him a bone, essentially, right? I mean, they literally throw him a bone as well, some of the other members, but, beyond just that as well, I think Bjorn also kind of helped Thorfin realized something else as well, right? Because as expected, the members of this crew and, Bjorn, specifically in this case, a prominent member of this group, essentially Ashkelad's right-hand man, and he tells Thorfin, yes, your father was strong, right? No doubt about it. And, this, you could tell they certainly respected that aspect of Thor's, for sure. Ashkelad, you see Bjorn has respect for Thor's in that case as well. But, again, as expected, they do think he was a bit naive, right? from their perspective at least, they think his approach was a bit naive. And of course, he stuck to his approach right till the end, and he died, right? But I think for Thorfinn to hear this, of course, as he heard it, it was really difficult for him to hear this, right? And he lunges at Bjorn. And you see, perhaps maybe because of this encounter, he does come to realize something. Because, through the span of that episode, from the first duel to the second duel, you see a change in attitude, right? You see that he is open to changing that stance a bit, right? To get the better of Ashkelad. Initially, he just kind of sneaks into Ashkelad's room, and he has every chance to just take him out right there, right? But he couldn't do it because he remembered, as full of anger and rage as he might be at the moment, he's still not that far gone that he's completely forgotten the things his father stood for, the things he believed in. He was not able to kill him in his sleep. I mean, Thorfinn certainly believed that was not the honorable thing to do. That's not the thing his father would have done, and he remembered that. And of course, Ashkelad knew that Thorfinn is in the room, and he's got a blade in his hand, right? Quite a large sword. That he does realize is a bit too large for him, right? It's not optimal. And he does switch to the blade he got from his father, the one he gave him just to defend himself, right? But yeah, he didn't do it. And you see that Ashkelad was actually quite interested in seeing how this plays out, right? He was trying to see if this child is able to actually pull this off, right? Of course, Thorfinn didn't do it, but Ashkelad was certainly interested in how this plays out. And you see in the next morning that Thorfinn, approached it in like a more official sense, right? And then he tells him, that my father would never do it like that. And you see that Ashkelad kind of lets out a sigh, right? That, he kind of gave up the kill for that reason, right? Again, Ashkelad has respect for Thor's, but, that's not how he functions, right? You see Bjorn is the same. And that's the reason he called Thor's naive, right? But you see, throughout the episode that there is a bit of there is some development there, in that short span, his experiences out in the forest. You see in the second duel, he was open to that approach, right? He tried to blindside Ashkelad, right? And I think that surprised Ashkelad for sure, because that action, I think that final action, that finally kind of convinced him, okay, this kid certainly has determination, perseverance. But yeah, even before that happened, you see, in his demeanor, in his attitude as he approaches the group once again, and Ashkelad immediately noticed a change, right, in his attitude, in his demeanor, and you see that there is a sense of confidence kind of oozing from him, right? Again, it was clear to see, and Ashkelad was excited by this. He was actually quite surprised by this, but excited as well, right? Because again, at the end of the final episode, he just kind of thought, okay, yeah, this child's just going to die, just leave him. But also, I strongly felt that yes, he wants to see, he wants to see how Thorfinn handles this situation, if he can survive, right? If he has a capacity to survive, can he dig deep? And yes, he did. And you see the smile on Ashkelad's face the second time Thorfinn approaches them. And as I mentioned in my last discussion, maybe Ashkelad feels that he can help this young child kind of channel that rage and anger, right? Give him an outlet, perhaps. And I feel like he's done that by the end of this episode. He tells him, achieve something great on the battlefield, then I'll give you a duel. Because by the end of the second one, he shows them that you're not ready just yet, for this, opportunity, to have a one-on-one duel in that capacity. So, first prove yourself, become something, achieve something. Then I promise you, I'll give you another duel, right? So, I think it is playing out like that, isn't it? He is going to help him channel some of that anger and rage. And yeah, it appears that Thorfinn is about to embark on this life or journey that, is essentially the opposite of the things his father wants for him or wanted for him, and the lessons he taught him. But I do think through his experiences, right, he is going to understand the lessons his father was trying to teach him and the path he wanted for him, right, the stance his father had. I think, yes, there's a lot of tough lessons ahead, and he is heading into the opposite direction, essentially. But I think he is going to understand that at some point. So even though there's a big, phase before that could potentially happen, I do think at some point he is going to understand his father, right? And the things he represented. Though that being said, he already understands some elements of the things his father represented, honor being one of the big things, right? And of course, honor and dishonor are certainly going to be explored in this series, as they are explored in this episode as well. Again, I feel like those things are clearly tied to the thematic core. And, one of the big moments of this episode, or of this story, actually, I think, is, him kind of getting his first kill, right? It's not a human, it's not a person, but it's first kill nonetheless. That first blood, right? That shot of his hand covered in blood, and his blade covered in blood, and him kind of, just really shocked at the situation, right? The warm blood on his hands. I think that's an important moment for the series. Of course, a sign of things to come, perhaps, that there is a lot of blood in his future, right? And, this is the beginning of that blood-soaked journey, perhaps. Again, to see that blade covered in blood after he removed it from that chest back in his home, right? And, getting those lessons from his father, yet he wasn't able to grasp any of it. It's a powerful moment, to see him now covered in blood after, killing or making his first kill or getting his first kill. See, that was an animal, right? That was an animal. And, before I move any further, that was such a realistic depiction of that, wasn't it? Right? Because he gets to see it firsthand. He gets to experience it firsthand. Something dying, a creature dying, a living, breathing creature dying by his hands, right? And it's a slow death. You see, that's why, it has such a realistic feeling to it. It's a slow death. It's miserable, right? And he sees it right then and there in front of him. That's one thing. Yes, it's a living thing, but, that's a precursor, isn't it, to his first human kill, right? He is going to kill a human at some point. I think that scene is going to be something else entirely. That is, raising the stakes. That is something else, that is really going to hit him hard, I think, once he does end up doing that. Seeing another human's life or taking another human's life. And, I think in that moment, he is going to remember some of the things his father used to say to him. It's going to be tough, again, there's only tough lessons ahead, and, he's going to come out on the other side quite battle-hardened, quite, cold, perhaps quite stoic. But I do think, even though it might be a long journey, I think at some point he is going to, understand his father, truly understand his father and his lessons. And of course, Ashgalad continues to be such a fantastic character, man. There's so much potential there. I'm really excited about this character and, the relationship he's about to have as a mentor with Thorfin, right? He is going to be a mentor to him. You can see that, it's clear. And that excites me. It really does, because this is such a great character, Ashgalad. I can already tell. I'll enjoy him quite a bit, and he kind of reminds me of Egbert from Vikings as well, right? A few of the same qualities, similar qualities about him as well. But yeah, Ashgalad. I love that moment of Floki's men coming up to pay him, right? And they asked, right? Floki wanted to know, how was his death? I love that he didn't want Floki to have that satisfaction, right? So he just told him, it was a normal death. I mean, that's my interpretation of it, that, he does have respect for Thor as a man, right? And, to me, it felt like he didn't want Floki to get the satisfaction, right? So he just kind of made it sound like it was really mundane, nothing special. And of course, this is a coming of age story as well. And, one of the common themes of that is usually, the death of a mentor, right? But, I like the really unique take on this one, because, the individual that's about to become a mentor to Thorfin is essentially the person he wants to kill, right? So it's a unique take on this, that whole, cliche almost of, the death of a mentor. But, I like the twist on it here, that the mentor is essentially the person he ultimately wants to kill, right? And you see that he's already beginning to take some of his lessons, right? As he's, in a really dangerous situation, a life and death situation. And, that thing he told him about the sword, he remembered the tip Ashkelad gave him about the sword, right? Don't let the sword guide you, or don't let the sword move you, right? So instead, he changed up tactics, goes to something that's much more, favorable to his stature. Something he can control and have control over, rather than swinging around a big sword that's going to be just really, ineffective for him, for someone of his size. So I love that he already kind of remembered that, right? And I mentioned Bjorn earlier. I feel like he did take something from that conversation as well, even though it hurt at the time. That conversation about your father being strong, but he was naive, right? That he ultimately died. I think Thorfin took something from that conversation as well. As you see, he does take a different approach. His attitude does change a bit about taking that kind of approach, trying to blindside Ashkelad as he is speaking with Bjorn. You see that after some training in the forest, some practice, he's become quite good at it. So given his stature, his size and his agility, I think, he could become a bit of a assassin for them, right? And circling back to the coming of age element of this story, and it's certainly present in this episode, or there's evidence of that in this episode for sure. Another one is having sudden information dropped in your lap, or sudden reality or harsh reality dropped into your lap, right? And flipping your world upside down. And of course, that kind of leads into the character having to mature before their time, right? And you already see elements of that in this story. Young Thorfin at 6 years old certainly had to mature long before his time, and he's going to have to continue doing that, right? And the journey and transition perhaps to adulthood is messy, right? Full of mistakes. It gets complicated. There's a lot of heartache, a lot of struggles, right? So that's on top of him having to mature at a really early age. Now, an interesting element of this episode is the fact that there's no sugarcoating. There's no sugarcoating about it. These are the characters the audience is about to follow or go on a journey with. And, the writer of this story has not sugarcoated anything about it. These are not good men, right? These are not good men. The phrase raping and pillaging is synonymous with Vikings, right? It just is in popular Viking fiction, essentially. Historically, of course, that's a whole different thing, but in popular fiction, that's certainly how they're portrayed, a lot of times, and you see that they're certainly leaning into that in this as well, or the writer of this manga, unprovoked aggression, brutality, bloodthirst, burning down settlements, they're really leaning into it. And, they almost immediately go into that to really, almost immediately show us these men, their true nature, this group at least, right? Ashkelad's group. So, I thought, actually, before I go any further, I'm not saying it's glorifying it. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that it's being put right up front, like I said, right? No sugarcoating here. They're showing us, these are the characters the audience is about to follow, and this is what they're about. They might not be good men, right? But, that doesn't mean they can't be interesting, right? That's one of the reasons all of us love storytelling, right? To see the different types of characters, to see unique characters, some of them might be absolute pieces of shit, right? They might be really evil men, bad men, but they can still make for really interesting characters, right? And, at this moment in time, the most interesting character of the story is Ashkelad, right? Because Thorfin is still in the early stages of his character arc kind of kicking off, right? The journey is just beginning, right? But, at this point in time, Ashkelad is the one that's the most intriguing, right? As, this is a great example, I think, of an impact character, a character that is going to have a flat arc, that is essentially complete. But, he's going to play a major part in the development of this other character, right? Thorfin. So, yeah, a gray area essentially, right? But yeah, they're upfront about it. They're not sugarcoating. These are the men you're going to follow. These are the things they are going to do, right? And these are the people Thorfin is going to grow up with, essentially, right? So that in itself is a major aspect of this. Again, the passage of time is a bit unclear how that might, play out, but I do, I still feel like there needs to be a bit of a time skip, to show us a bit of an older Thorfin, early teenager, perhaps. And, at that point, things could become really interesting as well, how he's going to react to this lifestyle. Is he going to struggle with this at some point, throughout his journey and come to realize, like this is not, he simply cannot continue on this path, right? He can't be part of this group anymore, or, this is not the life he wants for himself. Though I think that's, I'm thinking like really far down the line, I'm not sure how long this story is. I know that it's still ongoing. So, that's certainly a good sign, because I do want to see Thorfin, go through the different phases. I want to see him at different ages. I want to see him as an adult, right? I want to see this grand journey, the saga. And of course, one of the really standout moments of this episode, or one of the standout themes of this episode, is that he gets to experience the harsh reality of the world he lives in, right? It can be unforgiving, right? Brutal. There's that one really powerful moment, right? As he's in the forest and he starts hearing screams, right? Chaos in the distance. And then, that beautiful shot. I mean, I call it beautiful because it is, it is. Visually, it's beautiful. But, of course, it's the fires going up and you can see it through the trees. Visually, it's stunning, to see that happen. But behind the beauty of that image is a really dark and harsh reality, the brutality of it all. A village is getting pillaged and people are getting raped. It's dark, man. And you see that one shot, one of my favorite shots of the series, 5 episodes in, the fire being reflected in Thorfin's eyes. The kind of like the loss of innocence. I think it's symbolic of a few different things. One of them being the loss of innocence, him truly seeing the brutality of it all, the harsh reality of it all. I think it's also symbolic of the fire and the rage that burns, within him, that thirst for vengeance for his father. And, again, I think it's also symbolic of a sign of things to come, that he's going to see a lot of that in his future, right? And that he's probably going to be playing a part in that as well, right? Right now, he's just kind of taking it in, but I think he'll be playing a part in these kind of situations as well down the line, right? So it'll be interesting to see how he deals with all of that. If he does become detached, right? Let's see, there's so much interesting stuff at play here, man. I thought the juxtaposition from the, the beautiful imagery of the forest, the lush and the vibrant imagery of the forest. Again, in that sense, one of the most visually stunning episodes of anything I've seen in a long, long time. There are some beautiful images in this, some beautiful imagery in this. Some of those, good chance they might end up on my wall, man. I mean, at least one of them might end up on my wall. Something from this anime is going to end up back there. The animation, the backgrounds. Oh my God, it's just beautiful, man. It's just beautiful. And, that's the thing that I really liked about this episode, right? I thought it was so effective, the juxtaposition here from, beautiful, serene, vibrant, lush forest to then showcase the brutality that is going on, and, the fire being reflected in Thorfin's eyes. So effective. It really is so effective. And like I mentioned earlier, it has some dark beauty about it as well, right? The imagery, kind of like Hannibal, right? Hannibal's one of those shows that has some brilliant cinematography, some, amazing dark imagery. This has its fair share of that as well, right? So yeah, I'm so impressed by this. But going back to the initial point of the audience following this group of characters, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how others see this. I'm still early days into this, but yeah, they're not being set up as nice people or anything. These are not nice men. No doubt about it. I mean, I can see how for a lot of people that could be a difficult thing to get into, to follow these characters, right? To sympathize or to empathize, right? To relate to any of these characters, given how brutal they are. But I think the approach here is to realize that yes, these are not meant to be good men. These are Vikings essentially. And this is a mercenary group, right? Pirates essentially. But I feel like if someone is not able to get past that, then it might become really difficult for them to actually care for anything in the story. Really, if indeed it does follow this group for a long time. I'll give you a quick example of this. Another anime I've been checking out, Death Note. Right? Light Yagami, Kira. Interesting character? Yes, no doubt about it. It certainly has a lot of interesting elements to that character. But, I think Light Yagami's insufferable, right? I'm far enough into that series to have that definitive, take on him, that character. He's insufferable, I think. So, I certainly don't like that character, but, it's an interesting character. Nonetheless. And, I've had people tell me they started Death Note at the same time as me, right? But then, a few of them told me that, they just couldn't continue because they found Light Yagami so insufferable, right? And I get that, I get that. So, you can't really hold that against anyone, if that's their take on a character, that's fine. That's completely fine. And I totally see their angle, if they do find Light Yagami insufferable, because I myself also find him insufferable. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if there are similar experiences to this anime as well. People just can follow this group of characters. Perhaps, I could see that happening. I could totally see that happening. And like I mentioned earlier, Thorfin is essentially going to grow up within this group, right? His formative years are going to be spent with this group. So, yeah, that in itself presents a really interesting angle, doesn't it? Like I said, I think I mentioned in my last discussion, he's going to spend more time with this, mentor, Ashkelad, than he did with his own father, right? Most likely. And, then that takes me to this other side of it, right? He still has family out there. And, this shows that Leif Erikson gets back. He apologizes to Helga and Ylva, tells them that, he died protecting all of them. And he died protecting Thorfinn, who's missing at the moment. But, he's made it his goal to find him no matter how many years it takes. And, I think that right there is a bit of foreshadowing, perhaps, that he might not actually come across him again for a few years. But he is, that sets it up nicely for an encounter, right? At some point, right? It's inevitable, right? That Leif is going to run into Thorfinn. But, the Thorfinn he might run into is not going to be the same Thorfinn he knew or his family knew, right? So that in itself presents a really interesting and exciting prospect, doesn't it? A meeting down the line. So yeah, let's see how that plays out. But the thing here, that's really sad, and one of the saddest things I've seen in the whole series so far, almost as sad as Thor's right dying, is Ylva, how she handles this emotional news, right? This emotional trauma, essentially, of finding out that her father has died and her young brother is missing and could be dead for all they know, right? You see that she immediately tries to, distract herself. She immediately tries to ignore it, right? She tries to suppress her emotions, right? She dives right into all the responsibilities, the new responsibilities as well she has now, given that, Thorfinn's gone, her father's gone. She utilizes that as an escape, right? She really buries that emotion deep down. But then, at one point, it was going to all come out. And you see that her mother, Helga, who's such a strong person, and, you see that she knows that she's married to Thor's. And, even that goodbye, I think she knew, right? She knew that Thor's is not going to return. Helga's a rock of a person, right? So, I hope nothing ever happens to Helga and Ylva. I really hope not. But yeah, that moment at night, Helga asked her to come to bed now. It's time to rest. It's time to sleep. And she sees it. She sees that her daughter's trying to, bury all those emotions, trying to run from those emotions, distract herself. But then it all came pouring out, right? Ylva kind of surprised herself as well, right? But her eventual breakdown, and there's emotions pouring out of her. I thought that was such a realistic depiction of this, right? Really sad moment, really sad moment. So, it'll be interesting to see how that story progresses. If they're going to focus on that. I mean, I hope so. Somehow I hope they keep bringing that in still, or keep that side of the story alive. Yelva and Helga, she mentioned getting a husband. I could see a future for her that she does find someone. Maybe that could come into play, right? But let's see. I hope they don't get forgotten in this story. And again, an eventual reunion presents a really interesting and exciting prospect as well, right? Because this is not going to be the Thorfin they remember. And, I'm quite hopeful that at some point down the line, they are going to meet up again. They are going to reunite. But, the interesting thing is going to be, them seeing this Thorfin that they don't know. I think it'll be kind of similar to Arya, right? Her siblings seeing her after all this time and seeing that she's not that young, plucky sibling that they used to know, right? She's kind of turned into a bit of a killer. Not bit of a killer, yeah. She turned into an assassin, an ice cold killer that she had to grow up on her own out there, right? She had to mature long before her time, right? She had to face the brutality and the harsh reality of the world. So I think there's a lot of parallels here, Thorfin and Arya Stark. Once again, there's that parallel of the Hound and Arya. There's that one scene in Game of Thrones as Arya kind of, sneaks up on the Hound as he's sleeping, though he knows, he's got his one eye open the moment Arya's really close by. So again, almost like a carbon copy of that scene. Only difference is, the Hound kind of calls out to her. He tells her, you better make it count. But yeah, I think the Arya Stark parallel is one I'm probably going to draw a lot throughout this series. But, that's about it. I think that's about it for this episode. I think fantastic. There's so much great setup here. This mentor, this Ashgalad and Thorfin mentor relationship just kind of took off. I mean, I feel like eventually Ashgalad is going to die. Right, I think it has all the signs of that, right? But the journey, I think the journey is about to be incredible, right? This relationship, as unique and interesting and complicated as it might be, I think it's about to give me a fantastic character arc or story arc. So yeah, I'm quite excited about this anime. I think this has a potential to challenge as maybe the best I've seen. So yeah, let's see how it plays out. So if you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you're interested in early access or full length, consider checking out the Patreon page. Once again, it's only an option, but if you're interested, the link is in the description, in the pinned comment. So check that out. And also the links for my social media, specifically Twitter, because that's the one I'm most active on. Beyond YouTube. The link for that is also in the pinned comment and the description. But yeah, that's about it for this one. Thank you for joining me once again. Thank you for your time, and I hope to see you again soon for the next one. So until then, take it easy.